What's up, guys? It's Coach Grant of First Down Training, and today we're going to be breaking down something all five-star wide receivers have in common. So I hope this video helps you guys out. I hope it can teach you some new things about route running and how you can add these skills to your game. But also, fellas, if you're a wide receiver and you want to know a daily training schedule with all of the gym and on-field exercises wide receivers should be doing, check out that very first link in the description below for our ultimate 8-week wide receiver workout plan. It is over 500-plus drills and exercises for wide receivers to do in the gym, on the field, for route running, explosiveness, speed, the works. We give you an example of each exercise and drill and the sets and reps you should be doing. So check out that very first link below if interested. Let's get started. So this first router is from Calvin Ridley when he was at Alabama. So Calvin Ridley was a 5-star ranked wide receiver coming out of high school. Obviously, that's probably all the guys that end up going to Alabama anyways, are those like 5-star higher ranking guys. Now, I want to make this very clear. The stars thing does not matter. If you're a guy who's maybe from a small town, and you maybe don't have as much exposure as some of these high, areas like Florida, Texas, California, where you see a lot of these 5-star guys come out of, that's completely fine. It's not the end of the world. If you're a 1-star, it does not matter. When you get to college, everybody is the exact same. 5-star thing is just a label that they put on people. But people are curious, what do these guys do differently that gives them that 5-star quote unquote rating? So one of the things that they do is they are very, very explosive with their cuts. That is something that Alabama wide receiver coach Nick Saban, they all look for in their wide receivers. And they've said it in interviews, they look for smoothness and explosiveness in and out of the break. So we're looking at a sluggo route here from Calvin Ridley, right? And we're going to compare this to a route from Julio Jones, who was also a 5-star wide receiver coming out of high school and ironically played at Alabama as well. So on this sluggo route, anytime that we're running a double move, right? Slant and go, post corner, you have to run the first route first. So if I'm running a slant and go, I actually have to run the slant. I have to make sure I'm running full speed, I'm running in full stride, and I commit to it. Now, why is that important? Because that obviously sells the route. But a lot of people can sell the route, but they're not able to change direction like this. They don't have that quick trigger where they could shoot their foot in the grass, be able to create some explosion, and slip back out to the outside. Not a lot of guys have that. Not a lot of guys can do that. So how do we do that? Your explosion on your cuts is obviously something that you could develop by training good habits. And we're going to talk about that in a second. But when it comes to your route running, you have to make sure that we don't reach on my cuts and I commit to my cuts. So anytime when you're trying to change direction, so many wide receivers will lose separation on double moves, regular routes, even like post corners, because before they make this cut, they start to round with their body. So what they'll do is like on this sluggo, instead of selling the slant for 3 steps and breaking off the 3rd step, before they do it, they slow themselves down. They start to turn with their right hip and their right shoulder because they're so anxious to get upfield. Guess what that will do to a DB? When he feels your speed slow down, he slows down. And if it's like man coverage and he's watching what? He's supposed to be watching your hips, he'll be able to sit on this route all day long. So to make that explosive cut, you have to commit your hips, commit your shoulders, and actually run hard. That almost forces you to have to make that explosive sudden cut so you could get some burst up field and create some separation. Now, some of you might ask, well, I try that. I do that. I run hard, but I just don't have the stability. I don't have the balance to make that cut. That is something that you can work on. So as a wide receiver, again, you got to be doing one-legged exercises in the gym, RDLs, split squats, single leg squats, all of those things that will strengthen that one leg, give you balance, help you work on those things, and then apply it to actual on-field training where you're doing cutting drills, you're doing drills where you have to hop on one foot. That is what will translate to athletic performance. A lot of times wide receivers are training incorrectly. They're not doing the things they need to do that will translate to this stuff, and that's why they can't make these types of cuts. You run hard all day long, but you have to have a combo of both. You got to know how to run the route, but also what's going to help you make that explosive cut. Let's play this thing again, full speed. Great job by Ridley selling this thing, committing to it, running hard, and showcasing that explosive cut. So now, let's take a look at a second example here from Julio Jones. Now, again, Julio Jones was another 5-star guy out of high school that panned out. And there are a lot of guys, trust me, fellas, that have been deemed that 4-star, 5-star label that didn't pan out. There are a lot of guys that they call busts, as they like to say. I wouldn't call them a bust because they got their education paid for. At the end of the day, that's what we're all trying to get if you're playing high school sports and you want to play college ball. Trying to get your school paid for it. Number one priority, right? So I wouldn't call them a bust. They didn't pan out in the NFL like all the quote-unquote fake experts like to say they would. But again, what deems them that 5-star rating? What are they looking for in guys? And this is a perfect example of another explosive type cut from Julio Jones, who is not the smallest guy in the world. He's not like like a 5'10", quick speedster wide receiver. He's a big dude, 6'3", 6'4", probably 200 plus pounds, and can move like this. Pretty freaky, but let's watch it full speed. So he's running this like post out, I guess you could call it, or maybe post corner. It kind of depends on how you're looking at this thing and what their offense is. But when he goes and runs this post, obviously he's got a very sudden break point, right? So that sudden break point is, again, from the same things Calvin Ridley had. They have the same thing in common on this double move. They're both selling it. They're committing hips and shoulders. They're running hard, and they're able to cut on a dime. Now, I mentioned this in the Calvin Ridley clip that they don't reach on their cuts. So a lot of wide receivers, a lot of young wide receivers, who maybe don't get as much separation to like over-exaggerate their routes. Instead of cutting like this and cutting in stride, being put the brakes on right now, to slow themselves down, instead of stepping here, they'll step here. They'll reach and they'll drag the back foot because that's how they change direction. But guess what? That is 10 times slower than what Julio Jones does right here and what Calvin Ridley did on the last clip. When you're able to run full speed and when you're able to have that quick trigger where you just shoot in the grass right now, and you're able to commit the hips, commit the shoulders, that's that explosive cut that we're looking for. You reaching and you dragging your foot does not give you any kind of explosion. And everybody loves to talk about the drag like, oh, well, I heard this coach say that dragging your feet is good. And having a little bit of a toe drag is not an issue. But when you're dragging and all this turf is shooting up in the grass because you're reaching out for something and you're trying to over-exaggerate, all that is when you over-exaggerate is an indicator. You're letting the DB know a break's coming, and you're slowing yourself down. When your foot is way outside your frame, you cannot drive off of it. But when your foot is inside your frame, you're sudden, you're committed to it, you're running hard, and you have that built-up stability and strength, you can get a lot of explosion. You can drive out of that cut, and that's that smoothness in and smoothness out like we were talking about at the very beginning of this video. So let's play this thing again, full speed one more time. So great example here of Julio Jones running this post corner, post out, and being sudden with his feet, showcasing the two things that they have in common with that double move. Okay, so now this is another route here from Calvin Ridley. Again, we already know 5-star ranking guy, and you see it a lot in receivers nowadays. The receivers who are ranked 5 stars this year, I believe, are like Ennis out of South Florida, and then you got Zachariah Branch out of Nevada. And when you watch them run routes, they have this very much so in common, what we're about to show, and that's that like violent hip drop at the top of the break. So this comes down to explosion. This comes down to like having that fast twitch, but let's watch this full speed. So he's going to be running this like stop route here against man coverage, and you see how he snaps down. He's violent with his hips. So many young wide receivers who do not have success, who do not make big explosive plays on film, don't have this. What they'll do is they'll run into a break, and instead of being able to stop right on a dime like Ridley does right here, what they'll do is like 2 yards before the break point, they have this slow sink of their hips, right? So and then some guys will beat the drum where they have all these fast hands movement, fast feet, and they have a slow sink of their hips because that's how they were taught from the time that they were 5 years old how to run routes. That DB, a good DB, will sit on that thing all day long. And if you want that like 5-star ranking, you want to be able to play Division I Power 5 football, you're not going to be able to do that because DBs are incredibly fast, and those DBs are the best DBs on their given high school team. Might work on a scrub, but that scrub ain't going to play Division I ball. He's not. That's just how it is. He might not even play college ball because very few are very lucky to play college ball. So when you guys get into a break like this, when you guys have to run a comeback, a curl, a stop route like so, you have to have that violent drop. That's what coaches are looking for nowadays. So when he gets to the top of his break, this is called a trigger step. So when you guys are running a route, personally, like if you're running like a curl, I like snapping with the outside foot. If I'm running a comeback, I like snapping with the inside foot. But it doesn't really matter. It kind of depends on the depth of the play. And when it's man coverage, it depends on like the landmark you're getting to. But when he snaps down, you see how violent the drop is. He's dropping his hips. He's bringing his chin to his knee. There is no wasted motion with his hands where he's beating the drum. It is a violent level change, and the hands, they stay natural. They don't do anything extra because he's not trying to have any wasted motion at the top of the break. We have to be violent and we have to be sudden with my changes of direction if I want to be able to compete with a high, very, very high level DB. So make sure, fellas, if you want that higher ranking, you want to be able to be a receiver, and again, the ranking doesn't even matter, but if you want to be a receiver who's ready for college-level DBs, elite guys, you have to be able to be violent with your change of direction and stop on a dime. That comes from having a great level change. It's quick, it's sudden, and you're bringing that chin to your knee. So how would you develop something like this, right? This comes, again, from all those same exercises that we talk about. because a lot of wide receivers just don't have confidence to do this. I love posting videos on this, and people always will comment, oh, I'm going to hurt myself. I'm going to hurt my knee. If you have the right technique, and you've done the things needed in the offseason to do this, then yes. But if you're freaking 110 pounds and you're running as hard as you can and your legs are like sticks and you're trying to break on a dime and snap down, yeah, you're probably going to hurt yourself. That's why you need to develop. You can't just walk out here and run routes full speed and try to make these types of cuts. But again, that shows you that it's not just freak athleticism, that these guys do this. They work on this stuff. They do drills for it. They do exercises for it. That is what builds that strength and that stability in that leg to make this cut. Let's play this thing again, full speed one more time. Then we're going to show Julio Jones, obviously, doing the exact same type of level change and the exact same type of break. So Julio Jones on this next route is going to be running a deep, like 10-yard out. Or not 10-yard out, like more so like 15-yard out. But it's going to be against outside leverage. So again, when you have an outside leverage guy and you have to run like an out route, for example, and he's outside shade, you don't want to try to like attack him because he's outside shade for a reason. He's just going to widen out and you're going to end up running this out route right into him with not enough space for the QB to lead you. So what you want to do is you want to attack his inside shoulder. You want to get his hips to open up. You want to get him to commit to the fade so he's pushing up vertical, and then you could slip underneath him and give the QB plenty of space to throw you open. Do not force the route. When you have a route that, like if this DB's outside leverage and you have an outside route, come back out corner, do not force it to his leverage. Do not just try to attack his blind spot because he will just weave and widen you right to that sideline. You have to attack inside shoulder. So when he does this at the break point, to be able to slip underneath him, you have to have that violent change of direction. So you see how when he drops, it's right in stride, he's selling fade, violent hip drop. You see chin to knee, dropping his butt down. Is he beating the drum with his hands? No, he is not beating the drum with his hands. He is just keeping his arms natural. Because when your arms stay natural, your feet stay natural. No wasted motion at the top. A lot of young wide receivers, what they will do is instead of being able to break right here on the 30, and burst out and maybe round up like 2 yards, they will start to slow themselves down. They will slow down 5 yards before, and they will have a slow sink of their hips, and then they'll just have all this extra wasted hand movement. We cannot have that, fellas, against a talented DB, because that's, again, if you're going to play Power 5 football or just D1 football at all, you're going to have to win matchups against very talented guys. And if you don't have that quick change of direction, you're not eliminating wasted motion at the top, you won't be able to win. We have to be aggressive with those hips, snap those hips down, because it comes down to being able to change direction while selling vertical. Let's play this thing again, full speed one more time. Great job by Julio Jones attacking the inside shoulder, then being violent with those hips, showcasing that change of direction that you need to beat a talented DB. All right, fellas, I really want to thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. If you guys have any questions at all, please don't hesitate to leave those in the comment section below. Always appreciate the feedback. It's always great to hear from you guys as usual. And again, fellas, if you'd like a full 8-week wide receiver gym and on-field workout schedule, check out that very first link in the description below. I'll see you guys next time.